Hi there, it's me, Jordan Van Haslo. Welcome to Jordan Van Haslo and Friends live on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. Let's get on with the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week of Showtime with Jordan Van Haslo and Friends right here on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. I am so excited to have this conversation with a new friend. We have a new friend here. She's a singer, she's a songwriter, she's a true artist, honestly. You know, it's so interesting how uh, the word artist is thrown around a lot. I think especially in the R&B world, it's like, oh, this artist, and they're just people who have nice voices who someone decided to record. But this woman has been a session musician. She's been a songwriter. She's, toured with everyone from Joss Stone to Marvin Gaye to she's an accolade of Roberta Flack. And I don't want to spend too much time introducing her because I want to spend most of the time getting to know her. So listeners, without further ado, please welcome my new friend, Honey Larochelle. Hello, Honey Larochelle. How are you?
Why, hello, my darling. I'm well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Total pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. You are so talented. And I think we know,
Oh,
aside
thank
from
you.
Jose, I think we might know of some of the same people. Like when I found out you were on the show, I started like looking on like Instagram, like who's she connected with and who follows her with, and some really cool people follow you. So so I don't know. Look, here's where we're gonna begin. Tell me
Okay.
what you're doing right now, and then we're gonna go way back to the beginning and learn about your journey.
All right. I am in the middle of recording a project to be released ideally this year. That's the beauty of being an indie artist is you can create your own deadlines, but I know that without a deadline, it just goes forever and ever. But I've been grinding since January on this new project. And so that's what I'm in the middle of.
Yeah.
That's the main and steady, the big news.
So what is
Which
what is the recording? Is it an album? Is it an EP? Is it a single? What is it?
so many
You're like, we're still trying to
questions,
we're trying to figure this out. You're like you're like, yes,
Okay,
yes, and yes.
yes. Long story short, like to be 100% vulnerable and honest, is I got my heart broken and I've been touring the past, 20 years all over the world. But the past 6 years, I've been background singing for an incredible artist from South Africa called Jonathan Butler. Now, he's like a legend in South Africa and frankly, he's a legend in the jazz world here as well and gospel. But it's been so wonderful touring with him that I just didn't release anything. I didn't write anything. I just after the pandemic ended, we basically flew out every Friday and flew home on Sundays or Mondays for the past 48 weeks out of 52 a year. So I just didn't do anything else besides my coaching program and my puppet band, which we'll get into. Um, yeah, so I haven't done a project in a long time. So I got my heart broken, and all of a sudden, there were songs begging to be written. And I got an invitation serendipitously to go to Denmark and write with all of my favorite musicians and producers in Denmark because I've been forging relationships in Denmark for the past same amount of time as I've been touring. 20 years I've been going to Denmark since 2006. And I used to go 6 to 8 times a year for 10 years. And so I made a lot of friends, and all of my last albums were done there as well. So I got this invitation serendipitously right on time, right when I was like weeping and my boy called to say Merry Christmas, and I was like, oh, Merry Christmas. And he was like, I just finished doing a whole album in 1 week. I was like, I wish you would do a whole album for me in a week.
Is
And
he a musician?
he's a rapper turned writer. So he's been writing for pop and hip hop artist. He writes for a lot of like rap chicks, frankly. Um,
Oh.
he's a
And that's
great,
and
he's
that's why he's your
brilliant.
ex?
He's not my ex. This is just a friend. This is
Oh, okay.
not, we,
There's a part. Okay, I thought this was this the
oh
guy
yeah,
who. Okay,
oh
got
no,
it.
no, no, no.
Okay.
He who shall not be mentioned doth not deserve the airtime, darling. He is not getting any of this interview. But my friend Jakob in Denmark invited me out. His rapper name is Jay Spliff. I call him Cliffy. Cliffy was like, "Come out here. You could stay with me for 2 weeks, and I'll set you up a session every day." We had 14 days. He booked me 9 sessions with different producers all around Denmark. So I was just already like, what a blessing, what a gift. So we went and rewrote a bunch of tunes. And then I got a very severe chest cold. I couldn't cut the vocals. And then I got home back to LA with my computer full of songs and I got robbed upon
Oh
landing.
no!
Yeah. So like
Like
I
in the
landed.
airport?
No, like I landed, my girlfriend picked me up. She had borrowed my car for the month that I was away. So she picked me up in her boyfriend's truck. We went to her boyfriend's house. My car's parked in the driveway. I'm fighting with my ex at the time. I'm like, how could you? At this moment, I had just discovered that not only were we broken up, but he had been cheating the whole time. So it was like all the wounds were reopening. My anger is at a trillion. I'm an Aries in 4 houses. Okay. So I was like fire coming from the ears. It was very authentic and real.
Yeah.
So I'm in my phone and she's like, you know what? Maybe you should come in for a cup of tea instead of driving home right now. Cause I was just like in a state.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, let's move my bags to my car. So when I'm ready to go, I could just leave. So we moved my bags to my car. I go inside. I think she locks the door, but she didn't lock the door. So we go in, we have the tea. I'm crying, the whole thing. 4 hours later, I'm like, I am spent. I must leave. And when I go outside, the bag is gone with my computer, my passport, my green card, my AirPods, 7 pair of prescription glasses, like the one bag, the one.
Yeah.
Nothing else was missing from the car, just that one bag and it also had my journal with like all my personal feelings and my dreams. And I, it was a moment, a very expensive, sad moment.
Oh my God. Did you punch your friend in the nose?
I did not. I was you got to remember where I was in that moment. Like I had just completed reaming another human for 4 hours, and like
Yeah.
sending them to the depths of hell and cursing their every. So it was already like she
You
ain't
was
got
it,
no.
so did you just like fall in like into a
I was just
puddle on
done.
the
I
middle
was
of like
just
Melrose Avenue or wherever you
this is
were?
the end of it. It's all over for me. You know. So anyway,
Wow.
it gave me a little setback, but I just got invited to go to Orlando for the month, and I just got home 2 days ago. It's Tuesday today, so I got home on Sunday,
Okay.
and I got to cut vocals for most of the songs, for a lot of the songs. But to answer your question, this is the longest answer ever. I think it's going to be 2 EPs. I think that what is going to become of this is 2 separate projects simply because we have half of it ready and they go really well together and they tell the right story and like it's the perfect portion of the heartbreak. And everybody knows, I mean, most adults have experienced heartbreak. And grief happens in several stages. So you don't need one project to illustrate all of these stages. So I feel like what's going to happen is the stuff that got cut is going to get released, and then we'll
Yeah.
complete the rest.
Okay, that makes sense. I love it. So you just said you just came back from Orlando. So my understanding is that's kind of where your career started. Like you thought it was going to be like the
Yes.
big break, but it wasn't the big break, but it was the beginning.
It's so true. You know what? That's the perfect way to describe. I'm like, how did you know? That's exactly, yes, that's exactly like I had this man in my life who I call my angel. He was my dance teacher from the time I was 13 to 17. And when I was 12, my mom moved me from Vancouver, which is, gorgeous Pacific Northwest. There's forest, there's mountains, there's ocean. When your friends get mad at you, they're like, I'm not your friend anymore. And you're like, oh, right? Like that's the most devastating thing that could ever
Sounds like
happen.
where I grew up in the Midwest, so it sounds
Okay.
similar. It sounds very similar. I always think of like Canada as being the upper Midwest. So,
Yeah, totally. You know what? You're so right. Where in the Midwest did you come up?
I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago.
Oh, the shy.
The
That's where
shy.
he who
He
shall
oh
not be mentioned. I was about to move there. Anyway.
Don't think I haven't made a mental check note. We're coming back to
Um,
that.
I'm
But
moving right along. So my mom moves me. I'm 12 years old. She uproots me because she got married. So she moves me to El Paso, Texas, which is also known as hell. Hell Trasho, Texas. And
it's like the
it's like
complete opposite of everything you probably knew.
the fourth most violent city in the United States. It's also a border town. So on the
Wow.
first day of school, I saw 9 fights at school on campus with no adult supervision. There was nobody breaking up the fights. And one of them, I still to this day don't know if that kid lived or died. I saw his lip fly away. I saw his eyes, bloodied and purple and swollen shut, and yet they were still beating on him. So it was a really incredibly traumatic move for me.
Why El Paso? Was your mother from Texas? Like that seems
No,
like
no,
it's just
she
a
married a
random
man.
place.
She married a Texan. He
It's
was, and
always a man, isn't it?
you know what I'm
It's
saying?
always a man.
These men now, you know, I, so we're just getting to know each other, but herein lies the beginning of the pattern. The men. These men, child. So there we were. I'm 12, and I join a gang. I'm petrified. First of all, I've always been a large child. I was like towering over all of my schoolmates. I was a very big child. And I used my size to intimidate people because I was so afraid. I had never been in a fight. I was the softest thing you'd ever find. But, I had to protect myself. And I was in this very scary place.
So
So,
wait. Before you continue on, what was the name of your gang?
oh my God.
We want the
I,
details. We're here. We're about the facts and the details here.
I joined a subsidiary of Crip.
Oh my God! Like you really? It's like
No, it was
welcome
not
to
a joke.
America. Welcome to
Yes.
America. You got the like experience.
Yes. Yes, I did. I really truly did. I mean, there's a lot of darkness to this story, but the fact is I came out where I am today, which is, a very lucky, very blessed woman. So,
But now I feel like I have street cred because now I have a friend who's a Crip.
like there's several ways to get initiated into a gang, and I chose the path of least resistance. Like the ways that they invited me to be initiated were heinous and obscene. And so, like, I don't even know if my initiation is even valid, frankly. I got a cigarette burn on the palm of my hand. And
Well, I guess
so
it
I
beats being like, gang
jumped.
banged,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It was literally like gang banged or jumped. Those are your options. Or a cigarette burn. I was like, cigarette burn me now. Immediately. Immediately. So, wow, I had no intentions of telling that story. How did you do this?
I'm good at what I do, darling.
You are sneaky cheeky. Oh my
But anyways,
goodness.
so continue. So you join this gang so that you can protect
Be safe
yourself and like have and be be a part of the community and not
and have
be.
something I can claim if I get stuck in a corner, you
Were
know?
you? Here's a question for you because I've always wanted like so. I used to work for a Canadian studio. I used to be the head of talent acquisition for Entertainment One, and that was the
Wow.
first time. You thank you, and that was one of the first times that I really was surrounded by Canadians because I was living in Beverly Hills, and so a lot of the people, all the executives were Canadian, and go to Toronto and so that was the first time I was really surrounded by Canadians, and that's why I joke and say it's like the Upper Midwest because it's like the Midwest on steroids. Having
Yeah.
grown on Midwest, where it was there like a even though like people think of Canada as being it's Midwest. I mean, it's a U.S. adjacent, and culturally, it's the same as the Midwest in terms of like the film and the TV and all of that. Was there a bit of not just culture shock? I mean, of course, there was culture shock coming from Vancouver to joining the
Oh my
Crips,
God, totally.
but but like but like
Oh.
but like were you ostracized at all, like because if you're like you're like, hey, how you doing, hey, or like like all those things that people are like, oh, you're Canadian. Was there
You know
like
what?
any of that as well?
It's a great question. I recall a few conversations where people were like, but where's your accent from? I was like, I don't have an accent. I couldn't hear that I had one. And then I remember, El
Meanwhile,
Paso
they're
is
like, where's your accent from?
right. Well, El Paso, even though it's Texas, it's actually basically like living in Mexico. So you're like, there's New Mexico and El Paso and then Mexico, and we all share a border right there. So most of the people in my school were Mexican or they were
Because it
black
was
because they
Mexico.
yes, exactly.
Right.
And we just got greedy as per usual here in America. So yeah, we were living in Mexico with American money, and then there were blacks who were because it's the largest military base in America in
Got
El
it.
Paso. So we have the hugest military base and we have the border. So all of that, like, people are swimming across the Rio Grande or walking across in the shallow areas each day to commute to work and
Wow.
they're carrying with them. Now, keep in mind, I could go to Mexico for a party because there's no ID checking, so you could just walk across the border, you pay a quarter, 25 cents, and they didn't even require that you carry a passport. I'm showing my
Uh-huh.
age, right? So just imagine what is coming across the border. So we had access to all of the things, um, you know, ad
Hence,
nauseum.
you were a crip.
Right. So there I am going, oh my God, I can't believe that I have to be a crip in order to just feel safe in these streets. So I found myself a dance studio and I ended up going to that dance studio 4 p.m. till 11 p.m. each day. And
Yeah. Can I
I
ask one
own
more question about the script thing? And I promise I'm not going to
sure,
dwell on this. But I'm
sure.
just fascinated because I've never had a gang member on my show before. And so
I'm such a Jew.
I have so many questions. So like did your mother know that you were in a gang? Did you know like how do you like or was it like kind of something that you had to like compartmentalize, and like when you were at school you had your like your blue do rag on, and then when you came home you like had your like Catholic schoolgirl outfit on?
Okay, it wasn't that serious. Um, basically, and to be fair, like I found these people willing to initiate me and let me rep their set, so to speak, as the children say. But then I actually ended up hanging out and like becoming friends with a different group of people who were a different gang, but they ran sort of parallel to Crip and they were called Folks. But anyway, like none of that was really that deep. My mom knew I was in a bad way. She could tell that I was struggling. I was getting into trouble, Now remember, I had a Canadian education. So when I got there in grade 7, we were learning everything I learned in grade 2 in Canada. So I could get straight A's and I would finish in 15 minutes, and the whole class is sitting there scratching their head for 50 minutes, the whole period. So I was like,
So
let
in
me
other
get,
words, just saying Americans are stupid.
I definitely feel cheated. I mean, like I go back home a couple times a year and hang out with other friends who are my same age, and they be using them big words, hunty. I'm talking about 4 and 5 syllables. I'm like, Akumi, where on earth did you acquire such vocabulary? Because
Edumacation. That's four
yeah,
syllables, right?
yes. Yeah,
Oh my God.
it's bad. It's really bad. Like the level is profound because in grade 2 I was able to absorb and easily capture all the same information. But in grade 7, they were still offering tests with like what is 6 times 6?
Oh, Jesus.
That part.
Wow.
That part. Yeah.
Wow.
So
All
it
right.
felt like glorified babysitting. Okay, moving
I'm
on.
not going to
Let's
dwell on that because we could totally like go down that rabbit hole. So, but you found a dance studio.
And I liked the dance studio
So
because the
that kind of makes
teacher,
you like, I'm sorry, now that I'm thinking about it. So you were a gang member who danced. So that makes you like, it's like West Side Story.
I was totally West Side. Listen, I was a choir nerd and a drama nerd who was repping sets in the streets. Okay. I was the biggest fraud, but I was also the new kid in school, right? So like I I thrived on the fact that I was capable of being a chameleon. I would
Yeah.
change my accent, I would change my clothing, my makeup to fit in. I was so afraid um, of standing out. And also, I was completely uncertain of who I was anymore because I didn't feel like I had a whole lot. Like, Canadian culture isn't that potent. It isn't like, ooh, this is so Canadian of you. Like, there's not a whole lot of that going on. We don't even have like
Mhm.
Canadian food. We have what? Poutine. Like, what is that? Like, come on.
Can we talk about poutine? Okay. So,
Yes.
so I had a Canadian friend when I was like high school, about to go into college, and all he would talk about was poutine, poutine, poutine is what poutine, poutine. So when I finally moved to Los Angeles, I lived in Hollywood Hills, like Franklin and Cahuenga area.
Right by
And
me, boom.
oh, is that where you are? Oh,
I'm
yay.
so close.
Yay. So I don't live there anymore, but that's where I lived. I lived there for almost 10 years, for about 8 years. But they opened up on what is it? What's a couple blocks south of the boulevard? Is that Selma?
Yes.
Selma. Okay, so Selma, like where the Danny Trejos is. There was a
Yes.
poutanery. Do you remember the poutanery?
I saw it there. I never once went in because poutine is just like the devil that wants to attach itself to your thighs.
Well, I was like, oh my God, it's a restaurant that sells nothing but poutine, poutine, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm gonna have it. And I ordered it, and I was like, I've heard all about this. I remember this. This is making me think about, X amount of years ago when I was in school. Oh my God, it was so gross.
Wait, but what kind did you order? Because the
I ordered, so
original
I ordered,
classic is
I ordered the
bomb.
original
I can't believe
classic, and then
you thought it
but
was
because
gross?
it was so like people eat this, but I'll tell you this: I had the same experience when I first went to Australia. So my friend invited me to her friend's house, and like her friend's daughter's kids were all sitting around, and they were eating this like black stuff on top of their toast. And I'm like, what's that? And they're like, it's Vegemite. I'm like, what the hell's Vegemite?
Oh
They're like,
no, child.
and it looked like,
Nope.
it was like almost like I stepped into a commercial for Vegemite because they're like, Vegemite's so good. I'm like, and I'm like,
Oh
I'll
no,
try
no,
it.
no.
And I put it in my mouth and I was like, why?
Nothing could ever prepare you. Okay, I'm a little offended that you just compared poutine to the experience of Vegemite because Vegemite and Marmite are the absolute most disgusting, and poutine is not. Poutine is not disgusting. I mean, listen, you may have
Um,
had the worst kinds because it
maybe it
can
was maybe it was a bad
you can mess
poutineery
it up.
and that's why they're not open anymore.
Right. Well, so here's the thing. It's like it's French fries, right? How many people F up French fries? Let's be honest. Like there's so many places with the worst fries. So it's already, if you're not starting with the bombedest ever potato situation, we're already downhill. Now then we're adding gravy. Now, gravy is like you could either make a turkey, cook a ham, make a tri-tip, and then create a gravy with the leftovers, or you can buy a packet of powder and then, like that's going to be a completely different experience, right? Your gravy is going to be, hello, I used to be powder and now I am gravy, which is different from gravy.
I
And then
understood.
we're
Good point.
adding and then we're adding cheese curds, which again, if you're doing anything at high scale, the reason I don't eat at very many restaurants is because first of all, they're poisoning us with the canola because it's cheaper. If you're buying cheese curds, you're already going to be like looking for the best deal for, you want to buy bulk and you want to buy volume. You don't want to buy high quality. You're paying that Selma Hollywood rent, boo. So I bet you had, and I know they got a 5 times the rate rent surplus premium over there. You already know. You're gonna get a shoebox for $2,800 if you just trying to get like a place to live on that corner. So they up there. They up there.
Yeah.
So they were
So in other
definitely
words,
so give
I
it
have
another
not
chance.
had good poutine. So what's your favorite poutineery? Or do you have poutine? Like, do you
No,
eat poutine
I
when you're in
don't.
LA?
No, I never
Like,
do. I
I
I've
need to go
had
to the
poutine
source
only I've only had poutine 10 times in my life because it's not my favorite thing, first of all. And if I'm gonna cheat on my diet, it's not gonna be for poutine. That's not what it's gonna be.
because it's so big. It's like it's so
That's just like,
bad.
oh,
Like it's
5,000 calories, and I've just had a half a meal and I'm gonna be hungry again in an hour. And then what?
yeah.
I'm not doing it.
So now I need to go. We need to go to Canada together because I want to experience
Yes.
the real poutine.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes.
I'm sorry, I keep taking us off into tangents.
That's
So
okay.
you started studying dance.
Okay, I started going to the dance studio. So calm down with the studying of the dance because basically I was partying my face off. I was so happy to have found this dance studio because my dance teacher was a 22-year-old queen who was a riot and was like, "Oh, I think it's a great idea for you to smoke this joint right before class with me." And
How
then
old are
we'll
you?
I was 14 and
Okay,
15,
got it.
so it was like, he was a naughty boy. And I felt like, okay, there's an adult that I can be with under his quote unquote supervision, and I don't get in trouble. You know what I mean? Because I had been getting in
Yeah.
so much trouble, but I'm still raging and partying and being naughty. And so that was my solution. But we did dance. We danced, he taught 4 or 5 classes every evening. And then we would sit and drink or smoke weed. And that made me feel like I was a rebel living on the edge, and therefore it was fine with me. And of course, my mother's like, "Oh, good, she's at the dance studio, she's dancing. This
Uh,
is great."
I'm just your whole story is making me rethink my relationship with Canada because I always thought, oh, Canada's so corny, but it's like, oh my God, you send your kid to America, they join a gang and they start smoking weed. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, but that does not say anything about Canada. Canada's still, we're very kind. We're very happy. And yeah, it is kind of corny, frankly, which
Do you
I'm not ashamed of it.
do you feel like, do you see yourself as Canadian or do you see yourself as American?
Good question. I've had a lot of debate on where I fall because I've had five sort of hometowns. I lived in Canada till I'm 12. I lived in Texas till I'm 17. I lived in Brooklyn till I'm 24. And then I lived in, wait, where did Florida till I'm 24. And then Brooklyn till I'm 36 or 31 or something. And now I'm here in LA. So all of these cities, none of them got me for very long. Actually, I've lived in LA the longest I've ever lived in any city.
Oh wow.
So I don't feel a heavy, like I'm repping my
Like
city.
allegiance to any specific place.
Right. And I've actually felt a lot of sadness around that, or just a little a tinge of jealousy to my friends who are like, oh, I'm shy all day at Chi Town, or like, I'm New York, you all day. Like, I don't have
Yeah.
that. I don't have like this is where I'm from, and that's always going to be in me. I have a
Yeah.
lot of places that have left a mark on me, and my accent still changes.
Yeah. Well, I guess LA is like the perfect place for that
Yes.
because even the people who are like born and raised in LA don't. I mean, I guess some people when they're down in like Compton or Watts, they might do that if they're like on the hip hop scene. But generally, everyone I know who is born, the few people I know who were like born and raised in LA, they're not like LA is the great in the way that other people in other cities do.
Yeah, it's definitely not well, also every time I meet somebody who's a native to LA, I'm like, "Oh, you're one of the 10 people."
Right? And they're like so like normal. Like they're just like, yeah, I'm going to work
Yeah.
tomorrow.
And there's
Like,
there's a big difference between, if you're from Inglewood or if you're from San Fernando Valley, like it's a very
because
large
it's so
region.
vast. Yeah,
Yes,
totally. So
exactly.
it's like, yeah, 100%.
All right, so
100%.
long story short, this dance teacher ended up getting a gig in Orlando. And he moved out to Orlando. I immediately get arrested because he's gone. It's just like, oh no. He moves to Orlando and ends up choreographing for NSYNC and Backstreet. And then he
Oh my
comes
God.
home for Christmas, and I had recorded my very first demo with my bandmate. I was in a band. I was playing in bars when I was 15. I was like playing a bar every Friday and every Saturday night. And my bass player recorded two songs for me with me. And I gave that demo to my dance teacher when he came home for Christmas. He sent that demo to the manager for NSYNC and Backstreet, and she sent me a plane ticket. We had never spoken. I literally got a paper plane ticket in the mail.
How old were you at this time?
I'm 17.
Was 17. Okay.
So I'm like, yo, I'm out. Like, she wants me to come for the weekend. I'm just gonna stay. I'm just gonna go there and move there and stay there.
How'd your mother
So
feel about this?
she was like, "Oh, thank God you get to escape this hellhole. Go, please." My mother is a singer. Actually, at the beginning of this interview, you said that I had toured with Marvin Gaye. That was my mom who did that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Because I was
No
kind of
worries.
wondering that because I'm like,
How
oh,
the
he died
hell?
in like
Right.
1982 or something.
Yeah, no, my mom's an incredible singer. She toured with Little Richard, Marvin Gaye, Bryan Adams, Bon Jovi, John Denver. So she did all this as a single mom, and then I'm with her on tour all the time. So that's like that's where I'm
Oh,
from.
so you really come from, you're like you're an industry baby. Like you grew up on, I mean,
Yeah,
I don't want to
single
say like people
mother.
say like Nepo baby and that's become a thing, but like you grew up in the industry. And so
I
you
grew
grew
up,
up
yeah.
with this. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
So
Cool.
yeah, my mom was like, she ain't had no money. She was like, "Can you hold my baby while I go on stage? Please. Thank you." Great. I'll come back and give her a little breastfeed on the break. It was like that. It was like,
That piece of information makes like puts everything we just talked about into a whole different perspective.
yes, I felt like that was kind of missing, but it's hard to tell this story and we're jumping around. So that's what happens. That's where it really came from. So I think that her marriage and her willingness to move to Texas came from, I just have two kids and I'm exhausted. And like, if he's going to be in Texas, then that's where we'll be. But she
Yeah.
hated it. She hated it as soon as she got there because there's no music, there's nothing really happening. So,
Yeah. Anyways,
yeah.
back to you. Back to you. We can interview your mother on another day.
On another day. So the woman sends me a plane ticket. I get there. I'm like, I don't need to go back for any reason. I'm here. Let's go. She puts me in the studio with these producers and we begin the journey. 6 months later, I'm like, I'm not really working. I've just been recording and writing, and this woman has been footing the bill. She's kind of going, we need to figure out what to do. So I call my mom and my mom's like, I would love to escape. I'm like, I need you, actually. I need my mom. I'm too young to be out here alone. And like, you should just come. So she moves herself to Orlando. And my manager, Donna Wright, she sent every single pop star that got signed. And remember, Orlando was popping at the time.
Right. Because this is the time of like Backstreet Boys
Yes,
and
it was boy band
NSYNC.
heaven.
We actually
Yes.
just so Joey Fatone's sister actually
Oh
we
my
just she just
gosh.
visited Janine. She just visited our show a few weeks ago.
Oh, amazing. Okay, so you're
We're just
already so you're getting other angle over here
So
because
did your mother like leave your father, or did she like,
yeah, so
or were
her
they still just
husband, they had been estranged already and they had already been separated before
got
she
it?
left. So
But anyways,
she
I'm
up
sorry.
and uprooted, and then her job became vocal coach of the stars. So she was being sent all of these kids, every boy band and every girl group that existed in Orlando, which like, we heard about the five that made it, but there were 35 that were developed and being, people were spending millions of dollars to develop these bands.
I, I remember when I came to New York, it was around that time, and almost everyone, like I was in the theater, but like almost every little white boy that I knew at that time was a part of like a boy band, and they were trying to like make
Yes.
their
Yes.
bones.
Yep. Oh, I mean, my God, we witnessed a lot, and some of it was dark, but also a lot of it was just, it was a weird time. The music industry was still lucrative. So people were making money. You could actually like sell records back then. It was a whole different world.
Yeah.
Um, and Transcontinental Records and Lou Pearlman and Johnny Wright and everything was happening. Britney Spears and Pink, we all had the same management.
Uh-huh.
So that was a time, but I really wanted to be like Jill Scott and Erica Badu, and pop music is just what was happening. So I ended up in a girls group
Okay.
with
What was it called?
we were called Urbanesque.
Okay. Urbanesque.
Yes.
Everyone
Robert,
was
the
light
dance
skinned,
teacher.
right?
The dance teacher who had sent my demo for me and had been my, I always called him my daddy because actually there was a moment that I lived with him and let him be my legal guardian. So he's the one who put us together and would choreograph our stuff and help us design our looks and get our photo shoots together and our video shoots. And then we got signed to Fight Ren, who had Titanium Records, and he was the one. He produced a lot of the first NSYNC and Backstreet and Take Five and O Town and Rob and even
Yeah.
some, yeah. So,
Just all of that, all of
we were
that,
just
that
up in
whole, yeah.
that. Yep, we were just up in it. And we did all right. We had a 4-year run, and in the little southeast region, we were working. We were working hard, and we were making some moves and making a little wave for ourselves. And this was like right before the internet. So I remember there was one day, like up until I was that age, I really thought that my biological father was deceased. I just was under that impression. And I think that my mom just allowed me to believe that because it was easier. And then there was this new thing called Google, and you could just put anybody's name in there and
Oh my
stuff would pop
God.
up. So that's how I learned who my father was and where he was, and that he was not deceased, but he was
He
alive
was
and
James
well.
Brown.
I mean, he thought he was, he thought that. I think he thought that. No, he lived in Philly. So I ended up, first, you go through a lot of sort of stages finding out something like that.
I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah,
Is your mother American or is she Canadian?
she's Canadian.
Okay, got it.
I was just on the phone with her before we hopped on this recording, and yeah, she's still singing. She's still awesome. She's still the best vocal coach there is. When I train with her for 15 minutes, I'll sing 200% better every time. She's amazing. So I'm thankful for her.
Yeah. So you're in this whole boy band, the
Girl
Orlando of
group,
this
yep.
this Orlando of this period is like the teenage music factory.
Yes,
So you're in
completely.
this world, you're in a band called Urbanesque, and you think that Jive Records is gonna pick you up and you guys are gonna be like the biggest thing. Didn't quite
Ye-
happen, right?
Didn't
So
quite happen.
so what was the next thing for you?
Well, then I moved to Brooklyn. Then that was
Okay.
my,
As one
okay,
does.
as one does. Oh, good. I can finally go to the city that's been calling me my whole life. And and I had always dreamt about being in New York, and I had all these fantasies of being in New York. And actually, Urbanesque had done this show, and there was a Brooklyn artist there. Her name is Maya Azucena, one of my
Oh, I know
best friends.
Maya.
Yes, one of my best
She's
friends on
so
earth to this day.
can I tell you, Maya came to one of my parties when I lived in Whitley Heights in LA.
Okay.
Maya came and like we had this huge party with like everyone because I was like brand new to New York or Los Angeles. And like I invited everyone I knew at that point because I didn't know anybody. I'm like, we're gonna make things happen. And
Yes.
one of my friends, my childhood friends, his friend lived in LA and he was a musician. And out of nowhere, he sat down. I have a grand piano. And he sat down and just started playing and singing. And then she started singing. And it just turned into the most amazing,
Aww.
like, New York musical party in the heart of Hollywood.
Yes.
In the heart of Hollywood. It was so wonderful. But yeah, Maya's wonderful. She's joined us on the show as well. But anyways,
Yes.
continue.
So Maya, Maya had done we had been on the same show, Urbanesque and Maya. And immediately when Maya and I met, we were like, "Oh my God, you're my sister." Like, oh, wow, wow, we're the same and we should be friends. Let's be best friends. And it was really just like that. She ended up bringing me out to New York, introducing me to everybody. So when I moved to New York, I stayed with Maya. She brought me under her wing. She like introduced me to every musician she knows, and then she set me on my way. And then I was there for about a year. In that first year, I started a band and began to play every single venue that would have us. I had an 11-piece band, and I held auditions in my tiny little Brooklyn apartment. I would cook the guys spaghetti and be like, "I can't pay you, but I can feed you with my food stamps." It was like, it was a real grind. But after a year, she called and said the brand new heavies are auditioning background singers. And I went to that audition and I was in there for 6 minutes and I got my first world tour.
It's
And
amazing.
that was really it. The brand new heavies brought me on my first world tour. I got booked October 6th, 2006. And we did Japan and Europe, and then we did a double headliner with Macy Gray. And that tour was how I got close with Macy. Macy signed me to her record label and ultimately ended up moving me to LA. I moved here on a record deal with her.
Oh wow.
And and in between, I got the tour with Joss Stone. And then from the Joss Stone tour, her guitar tech, who is still a good friend of mine, he was like, Roberta needs a soprano. I'm going to call her. And I met Roberta on a Tuesday and she snatched me right up. She was like, we're leaving Thursday. And I was on tour with her on Thursday and I was with her for 13 years. So
Oh
like
wow.
it all kind of just like snowballed immediately from Maya's original phone call with the brand new heavies are auditioning. And
Isn't that
that's
amazing
yeah,
how that happens? It's just like one introduction totally changes the trajectory of where you're going.
transforms your whole experience. It can do, you
Yeah.
know, and since then I've started my own, like during the pandemic, my pivot was I began interviewing people similar to how you're interviewing me, but I called them summits and I would interview 20 people over the course of a weekend, all these different amazing industry experts. And actually, why was I telling you that? It was just about the story. It's like
Hmm.
all of the experts were like, what's your story? What's your story? What's your story? If you're an indie artist and you're trying to do anything with your music, your story is really all that matters. So I've given you the very long version today. But there's a lot of mess in my story. And really the mess is what I think is the most important part. It's the one that's like, hey, if you could be a gang member in high school, and a high school dropout, you can still pursue your dreams if that's actually your destiny.
And
And if you're,
Canadian.
yes. I'm not out here like advocating for people to drop out of high school or college, but I am like, look, if you have a gift, if you have a passion and you have dedication and willingness, and you know how to create luck, because a lot of it is luck, but no luck just happens. All luck is manifested, it's created.
Yeah. Isn't that what they say? Luck is preparation meets opportunity.
I think there's, yeah, a lot of truth in that. And I think also like expectation for me, every time I've actually expected something to happen, it does. Those times that I really hope something will happen, it doesn't.
Yeah. I think like one of my oldest friends, we've always said, you get everything you want in life. Everything you've ever dreamed of, you get. It just doesn't necessarily look the way you thought it would look. But you but
Yes.
you get but you get all of those things, right? You probably wanted to be a singer who tours the world, and you did,
20
and you
times.
do, and you
Yeah.
do. It just didn't like it wasn't the way you thought when you were 7, but
Not at
like
all.
you get everything you want out of life.
That's so true. I actually really like that one. I
Yeah.
always say, like, you get everything that you want, but you may not experience it all at the same time or experience it when you want. But, like, I know that
Yeah.
I already have some of the things that I haven't experienced having yet because that time isn't actually linear. We made that up. But I'm getting into the woo. Don't get me started because we'll get into the woo now, baby.
So how do you present yourself? Like, are you a singer? Are you an artist? Like, how do you classify? Like, if I were like,
I
oh my
mean,
God,
I'm
you
not
have to
one
meet my
thing.
friend. Okay,
Yeah, I'm
we're
definitely
doing no
not one
total.
thing.
But like when you go to a cocktail party, it's hard. It's like I'm an actress, I'm a singer. Like if I were to say like, oh,
Yeah,
this is my friend Honey, She's a, an, or a.
Usually people are like, oh, she's an amazing vocalist. And then, oh, well, what are you doing? Well, I'm touring with Jonathan Butler and I've been with this person and blah, blah, blah. I also write and vocal arrange for other artists and I coach. I have a program called Sacred Artistry. And I coach other independent artists on how to navigate in today's dangerous industry streets. So,
Yeah.
it just depends, I think, a lot on the audience because if I think that it will benefit you to know this part about me, I will share it. And if halfway through our conversation something pops up where I'm like, oh, I could actually serve you, then I might share that part of me.
Like, oh yeah,
Um,
by the way, I'm a Crip. Who do you need me to
yeah,
go and run
yeah.
up
I,
on?
I can teach you how to run these streets. You know what I mean? I got you. Or who you need me to call, you need me to call a guy? I know a guy. Like I got a guy that knows a guy.
So is Honey your real name or is Honey your government name?
That's a great question. My government name translates directly to honeybee. So, honeybee was my sort of nickname growing up. And then when we started to try and make websites, all of the other honeybee websites were porn. And I had 11-year-old fans. So I dropped the B and I used my real government last name, which is La Rochelle. Um, and so Honey La Rochelle became the thing.
Because La Rochelle, because you're
La
Canadian.
Rochelle,
Bon, bon,
like a
bon.
city in
Wait,
France. Oui,
wait,
oui.
so yeah, so wait, so Honeybee, your name translated. So like your
So
name
my
is a
government
your
name,
government name is a Canadian name? Like is
no, my
there like a
government
whole
name
like
is
I don't know what Canadian like I'm
Canadian.
trying because I want you to teach me Canadian. A.
Well, a there's not a whole lot of Canadian, eh? You know what I mean? There's not a whole lot to teach, you know. We wear our whole culture on our sleeve. We're just like, hello, this is what you get. Um, no, my government name is Melissa,
Oh,
and so
Melissa. One of my best friends is named Melissa. I love that name.
I do too. And it translates directly to honeybee in all of the Roman languages, Greek, Italian, and even Spanish and
I never
French.
knew that. Now I have to tell her that. So now I can call her
Yeah.
honey without her
Yes.
threatening to cancel me.
Right, exactly.
Is that enough?
Exactly.
Is that enough, Jose? Can I stop it? Is that good? Oh, cause it says,
Oh, because Mel is
oh,
Spanish for
cause it
honey. Yeah.
must be honey. Okay,
Yes.
yeah. See, I'm American. I don't know that, but you're from El Paso, which is New Mexico, so you know
Right, right.
that.
I've
Am I
known that
allowed
all
to?
my
You known that all your life?
Yeah, my middle name is Mia and it means giver, and my last name is La Rochelle, which is a feminine way of saying the rock. So I used to, like, as a child, my name is Honeybee Giver the Rock. I just really loved that about myself. That's
That
just my
sounds
little.
very indigenous of you.
That was- there it is. There's my Canadian. Boom, right there. You're welcome.
Ah,
You know what I
oh my
mean? That
God, you're so amazing.
you're
I'm so
amazing.
happy to have had the time. We have to wrap up because
Yeah.
I would say like unfortunately, but fortunately we have sponsors, and so we have to let them
Hallelujah.
do their hallelujah. So we have to let them do their things, and but it's been such a great. I've had such a great time
Me
getting acquainted with you.
too.
You're so wonderful. And when I'm back in LA, we're gonna have to do drinks or coffee or
Or
whatever you do,
both. Let's
or
do it
both.
all.
Like,
Yes.
so where can our listeners find you?
Honey La Rochelle. If you can remember my name, Honey, Honey, La Rochelle, Larochelle. And I'm most active on Instagram, or you can just go to the .com, or you can Gmail me. Honey La Rochelle across all the things.
All right.
So that's the way.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. It's been such a pleasure. I'm so happy to
Thank
call you
you.
a new friend. And thank you all out there in Radio Land for tuning in. And we'll talk to you all next week for another episode of Showtime with Jordan Van Haslo and friends right here on Hot 702.5 FM.